Hello, welcome to 1 Hour SaaS. This is update number 2. I am Mubashir Iqbal. Everybody calls me Mubs. Today, I spent a lot of time thinking about the product and the features, and what I would have to build as I thought through the SaaS that I was working on. But I figure I need to tell you a little bit more about what I'm building, and because I kind of left it vague yesterday. I did leave you a little bit of an Easter egg in the video at the end as I was searching for domains just to kind of give you a clue as to what I would be focusing on. So as I mentioned, I was going to be working on a uptime monitoring service, and there's a ton out there. As I mentioned, one of the most popular ones is called Pingdom. And they just allow you to monitor any website, what the response time is, what the uptime is, if there is any downtime. They can alert you so you can fix the problem, all of that kind of fun stuff. But what I was thinking about doing was focusing on a specific niche, which I don't believe is served at all right now. And as you saw, as I was searching for domain names in the last video, I was searching for podcasts. And I think there's an opportunity here to kind of serve podcast hosts, people who do podcasting, and in a way of offering them a kind of monitoring system that's focused on them, because there's a lot of nuance to hosting podcasts. Not only do you have to host a website, you have to host the RSS, you have to host the actual MP3 files, and so there's lots of little points of failure along the system that could mean that people can't listen to your podcast. And so if you can build a monitoring system that will be focused specifically on podcasters, there's lots of little things that you can do that aren't possible with things like Pingdom, because they don't know the specifics about podcasting. So I started thinking about, other than targeting that niche and those little things, like how would it be different from a normal monitoring system? And like I said, it's got to do with all those little things that aren't just like a normal, it's not just a website, right? So you have to think about all of those things. So I think that's why it's a good niche to kind of target, because I don't think there's anything out there that kind of offers this as it stands. And yes, people might steal this idea now, and that's cool. People think ideas are cheap, and ideas are cheap, but I'm going to be executing on it. So hopefully we'll make some value out of it, even if other people take the idea and run with it as well. But that's okay, because I'm building this, one, to build a SaaS, but also to kind of go through the journey with everybody here. So as I start thinking about what I want to build and kind of how things will work and all that kind of stuff, I usually start with a pen and a piece of paper, and I just sketch out, I write down what the user flow is, what the different entities are that we have to kind of start to think about. So that was what I did in my hour a day, and I took a picture of them, and we can kind of look through them, and we can kind of see how I think about things as we start out. So also I just start to think about what's in the MVP and what's the minimum amount of features and functionality that we need. So I'm going to pull up the first slide here, which is kind of what I think is the main user flows that the application needs to kind of support. And there's going to be things in here that we add. There's going to be things that I missed, which aren't a big deal, but there's things in here. So obviously there'll be like a home page, a landing page, and then a user will need to sign up. They'll create a team, and I've got this in here. Sometimes I don't think about teams too much, but in this case I think it'll be helpful, because you'll have multiple people who work on podcasts. If it's a podcast with multiple hosts or things like that, you want to make sure that more than one person can get notified when the podcast is offline for whatever reason. So I think in this case we will need teams of some kind, because most podcasts have more than one person involved in them. And then you kind of choose your plan and enter your credit card info. Sort of that's the billing part of it. And then they'll actually add their podcast, and we can make it really simple in that you either paste in your RSS feed URL, or we search iTunes and let you find your podcast. And then you'll kind of select what kind of monitoring that you want to do, because there's going to be some podcasts that have websites, some podcasts that don't. They just upload to Anchor or to Spotify or to whatever, and that's the only place you can listen to it, or just iTunes or whatever it is. And then you'll be able to configure those notifications, like how often do we check, what do we do in terms of a failure? Do you want to check the website? Do you want to check the actual MP3 files? Do you want to check all of that? And we may have one tier that does all of that, or we may have different tiers that allow you to do different things. Haven't figured that bit out yet. And then obviously once you've done all that, you can also come back to the website. You can log in. You can add or edit a podcast. You can add or edit the monitors, and then also edit the notifications. And then the sort of final main user flow will just be that you will have received some kind of notification that there's an issue with your podcast. So you'll come back, you'll log in, and you'll see the alert that the website for your podcast is down, or the MP3s are inaccessible, or there's a problem with your RSS feed perhaps as well. So, and it may not be that it's offline, but it may be that you can't parse it, so it's not like a valid RSS feed anymore. And then obviously behind the scenes, there's going to be this kind of process that runs that for each of the podcasts. It loops through all the things that are set up in terms of what to check on, and it will kind of do lots of different things based on that, right? So it will check this out. If it's okay, then it doesn't have to do anything. But if there's an error of some kind, then do we have to check if do we want to send a notification straight away, or do we want to try again and then send a notification? What if we've already sent a notification, and sorts of all things like that? So we'll have to kind of handle the business logic for a lot of that stuff. So this is some of the things that that probably aren't going to make it into the MVP, but we may want to think about, like, do we want to check from more than one place? Do we want to make sure, as I said, we don't want to just like send like an email or an SMS message every single time there's an outage? Or do we want to say, like, we already sent you an email in 20 minutes ago that your site was down, do we not want to send it again? Things like that. And then, what are the different kinds of notifications? Can you send them via email? You can send them via SMS text message, Slack integration maybe, all of those kind of things as well. So there's going to be a slew of notifications that we want to support. We'll probably start with email just because that's easy and simple and everybody has it. And then we may add others as we grow as well. And then the sort of other thing is, like, do we want to send individual notifications? Let's say your site's down, or your RSS feed is down, or the MP3 file, the access in the MP3s is down. Do we want to batch that into one notification, or do we want to send individual ones as well? Probably at the beginning we'll just send individual ones, because you'll be able to configure them to check at different intervals. So trying to batch them becomes kind of a bit of a headache. So that's like the basic user flow and the basic system tasks that need to run. And so these are the things that we need to be able to do to finish the MVP essentially. There's probably, there's other things in there, like, I forgot my password, how do I log in? I want to update my credit card and all sorts of things like that we'll need to build. But in terms of functioning from start to finish and having a functioning product, do you need all those things? No. Do you need all those things before you start getting paying customers? Perhaps. But can I put it into the hands of somebody who's a good friend without those things, just to see if everything's working the way it's supposed to? Yeah, I can. So let's get to that point. That's the MVP. We can put it out there with this raw functionality, and then as we start to get feedback, we can continue to add those features and functionality as well. So the other thing I like to do at this point as well is just to think about what are the different entities that make up this podcast monitoring thing. What's all the information that I need to store about all of the things that are happening in here? And so to do that, I kind of build, just like an entity relationship diagram. So in this case, you've got users who are going to be on teams. You're going to have the teams are going to have a podcast. Each of the podcasts will have a setting, like what's the URL, what's the RSS feed URL, so sort of those kind of things. And then there'll be a bunch of different monitors. Again, we're checking if the website is up. We're checking if the MP3 files are accessible. We're checking all those kind of things. So you'll be able to configure all of those as well. And then there'll be the actual check. So every time we actually run one of these checks, we want to store the fact that we tried to check it. Was it success? Was it failure? How long did it take? How long did the site take to respond? all those kind of things. So for each one of those activities, we're going to store a check. And then in some cases, when the checks fail, we want to generate alerts. And there may be multiple alerts because each check might generate multiple ones of those, and they might be tied to an individual user as well. We have to also think about what's in the settings is like, how do you want to be alerted? So do you want to be alerted via email, phone numbers, all of those kind of things. And then each alert will have a number of notifications attached to it. So that's where it goes to all the different users who might be in the team. They might go to SMS messages, might go to Slack, all of those things. So we want to keep a track of all of the things that we've sent, when we sent them. Do we have some kind of ID that we can track to see that it was sent successfully and sort of all that kind of stuff. So we can put all this information into the admin panel somewhere. When somebody says, my site was offline, why wasn't I told? We can say, well, we sent you an email, we sent you a Slack message, we sent you an SMS message, and here's all the IDs from Twilio and Slack and all those kind of things as well. And again, there may be other things in here that I haven't really factored in yet, and as I get into the build, there'll be I need a table for this, and I'll just add it. But high level, top level, this is kind of all of the entities and things that we will need to keep a track of as we build out this monitoring system. I think that gives me a pretty good handle on what the features and functionality are, and all of the tables and models and things that I need to build. Between these two pages, and this probably took me about 15 minutes for each page. Just kind of sit down, actually think about things, and actually kind of work out. I mean, I did do a couple of versions of each of these where I kind of scratched things out and kind of started over again, because it was I've just organized it wrong, or I didn't think about this particular thing which sits in the middle. So it does, like I said, that took me probably about 15 minutes each just to kind of think about things and kind of see what's out there. I did use the rest of my time just kind of looking to see what else is out there in terms of in terms of monitoring and things like that, just to see if there was any open source things that I could use as I think about features and functionality that might help me in terms of just being a little bit more speedy in terms of being able to develop this thing. And I did find a couple of packages that looked interesting. I need to investigate them a little bit more to see if they will work for what I want to do. But for now, this is kind of where I'm at. And we'll kind of see what comes next here. But tomorrow I'm going to focus a little bit on branding and picking a name. Since this is an idea I had previously, I do have a name in mind, so I'll share that with you guys tomorrow, and hopefully we can kind of see if everybody likes it. But so I'll think about the name and branding tomorrow, just because I like to get something up in terms of a kind of a coming soon page, perhaps, for this. Make sure I can get the domain. I wouldn't normally buy the domain at this point, but since I'm doing this in public, and if I share my name, I want to make sure nobody buys the domain out from under me. So I'll probably, if I haven't already picked up the domain, then I'll pick it up tomorrow. Assuming I stick with the name I kind of had when I first had the idea, then I already have it. But we'll kind of see how that pans out tomorrow. But that's it for now. Hope this was helpful. Hope it was interesting. Actually, one last thing. So, in terms of, why move forward with this particular podcast monitoring thing? Last year I built PodHunt.app. So, I've got I've got an audience here of podcasters, people interested in podcasting, things like that. So I think that'll help from a marketing and a sales aspect of this thing. I can slot a ad in here for this podcast monitoring service, and I've got an email list with a few hundred people on it. I've got a Twitter following as well for the PodHunt app as well. So I'll have a good opportunity to kind of leverage that built-in audience to be able to share the app that I build. So I think that was another important factor, especially with the challenge with not having a lot of time to kind of do marketing and sales and do all that kind of stuff. Having an audience which you can kind of lean into, I think, is really important. And that was kind of one of the other factors as why I chose this idea as opposed to the other three that I had. So hopefully, if you haven't checked it out already, check out PodHunt. If you like podcasts, I think it's awesome. I might be a little bit biased there. But yeah, that's it for now. And tomorrow, hopefully, I'll be able to show you what I'm thinking in terms of a name and branding. Thanks a lot. See you tomorrow.